Cyber warfare and asymmetric advantage. I think all of us know that throughout history, armies have always searched for weapons with an asymmetric advantage over their enemies. And the asymmetric describes a capability where a limited effort on the part of one belligerent causes great harm or has dramatic effect on the opponent. Our own world, most recently two game changers, are represented by improvised explosive devices, or IEDs, and the use of remotely piloted aircraft, better known as drones. Now, those two innovations have totally changed the rules of engagement during our war on terror. Cyber warfare is the greatest asymmetric weapon we have seen in the 21st century. Stopwatch on that cover slide, and it's ticking. Because if you haven't been affected by cyber war, you will be and soon. There's two principal themes in the modern threats of cyber war and the steps a business, agency, or organization can take to mitigate those effects. We mentioned that our access to and reliance on information has grown exponentially in the past quarter century. About that, when was the last time I wrote to American Automobile Association and asked for a trip ticket to map out my route across country? I have no idea what I'm talking about. But before GPS, that's how we found out how to cross the country. Describe the evolution of threats facing us, and it's about nation state on nation state, and everyone is in play, from to infrastructure, to planification, information, and more. The threat has become very complex and capable. Already in 2014, more than 500 million personal records have been stolen from governments, businesses, and personal stores of data. Information is for sale. Information focuses on the straightforward actions you can take to mitigate the threat. Tougher than the next target. Solutions won't make you totally bulletproof. Tougher target. It's cutting poison on fire ant colonies, which pushes the threat over to your neighbor's yard. Finally, tools, techniques, and policies are nothing if you don't follow through and repeated processes. You want on your team to be a player, have a chance at security and success. Apparently, I gave Susan the long version of my bio. Add to that is my undergraduate degree is in math. My master's degree was in computer science and business. In the past 6 years, since I retired from the Air Force, supported a number of companies to include EDS, Aptus, and now AECOM, with whom we merged a few weeks ago. In 1990, we were taking the flow of information for granted. Around the clock, CNN, up-to-the-minute sporting reports from ESPN, global imagery, research, and even email was beginning to flow. Initial introduction to information warfare was during the first Gulf War, which began in January 1991. I was serving in the Pentagon. We decided that coalition forces needed to turn off the spigot of information being exploited by Saddam Hussein. And we would shut down his access to all outside information with one exception. We would let him watch CNN. Our precision bomb strikes on his airfields, command and control facilities, and forces in the field. Understand shock and awe. For the 1990s, our world changed overnight. I remember pulling up to a gas pump. It wasn't one with a credit card reader for payment. I drove away, looking for a modern station. I was not going to take the time to walk into the store to pay for gas. We're making our life easier. We're trying to get rich quick through ethical means. To kickstart cyber crime, cameras were off and running. Availability of information and ideas for innovation gave way to the dot-com explosion. Homes in America now had a personal computer, would share information. Time entrepreneurs and venture capitalists went all in. The cables were laid around the globe. Changed. About 10 megabytes of storage might be enough for a PC. The information revolution shifted into high gear. Just like Yahoo and Google staked out new territory, everything was discoverable through a portal. wanted to play, from government agencies to academic institutions to individuals through social media. It was publishing information. It took a little getting used to, but when I finally figured out how easy it was to pay monthly recurring bills with online banking and to manage my checking account and credit cards online, I was sold. I had not focused on the threat. And at that time, the threat seemed to be doing its best to tackle large business and government institutions. So apparently I was safe. Being comfortable, industry was looking for even more opportunities to drive down operating costs. The preventive maintenance team out daily to check on switches, pumps, valves, and everything else in the world. Why not simply link those sensors up to the internet and capture the information remotely, saving manpower, real time, and of course, cutting costs? Once arrived with expanded, and we could virtually run our material lives through a device which fits in the palm of your hand, sharing information, and everything was connected. This helps to have a couple of real experts on your side. I've stolen some quotes from two of our nation's most respected and expert cyber defenders. The FBI has been watching the cyber threat for years, that its relevance, capability, and potential harm grows daily. He's our number one threat in the near future, and I believe now. Last week, I spent some time with the FBI's South Texas regional expert on cybercrime. He told me that 110 million American personal information accounts were compromised through the end of September in 2014 alone. So explained to me that of the businesses whose data was compromised, 80% had no idea any compromise had occurred. A fine bite. Crime is causing a greater loss to the American economy than U.S. drug trafficking combined. And you and I are paying for it. Secretary James Clapper, Director of National Intelligence, is focused on multiple fronts: loss of personal information, loss of intellectual property, exfiltration of data from government sources, and threats to our national critical infrastructure. His soundbite points towards China. His soundbite pointed towards China captures your attention. The greatest pillaging of wealth in history. Of course, he's correct. If you look at the most modern Chinese military gear, from space systems to aircraft to rocketry and more, boy, their stuff looks an awful lot like our stuff. That is scary. So the fight's on. Talk now about what is actually occurring at the 1,000-foot level, and that means step back a little bit, see what is happening. Now, as early as the mid-'80s, but who cared and who knew? By the end of the 1990s, everyone was connected, and that's when one of the first